The next morning, I sipped my coffee with a steadier hand than the day before. The taste was sharper, more satisfying. Maybe it was the knowledge that I held every legal document needed to unravel Laura's house of cards, or maybe it was because I'd called in favors from old courtroom allies who still owed me. Either way, I wasn't just angry anymore. I was focused. And focus, in my line of work, always spelled trouble for whoever stood on the wrong side of the law. I had no intention of confronting Laura with bluster or dramatic speeches. That wasn't my style. This was going to be a dismantling, a silent deconstruction of her entire fake empire, brick by brick, form by form. First, I contacted my old friend Michael, a city records official in Springfield who still owed me from a property tax ruling I'd made years ago. I asked for every public filing from the HOA, incorporation documents, financial reports, community charter, and anything tied to lot annexations. He didn't ask questions. A few hours later, my inbox was stacked with digital PDFs. It didn't take long to spot the first glaring issue. My property was never formally annexed. Laura had submitted an updated map with my lot included, but there was no zoning board signature, no official approval stamp, nothing. She'd drawn it in by hand and photocopied it. Sloppy, illegal, and utterly void. I cross-checked it against the original subdivision plat I'd signed off on over a decade ago. Lot 42, my lot, was outside the jurisdiction line. It was clear in the Springfield meeting minutes I'd archived on my home server. Laura hadn't just overstepped. She'd committed fraud by including my land in her self-made HOA map. That was the kind of thing that made judges, even retired ones like me, lean forward in their chairs. I called another friend, Sarah, an accounting specialist who thrived on auditing nonprofits. I told her about Laura, the towing records, the bizarre party fund, expenses, and how she funneled fines for personal gain. Sarah had a knack for sniffing out cooked books and dragging egotistical board members through financial hell. She begged me to send the HOA's expense reports, which, thanks to Michael, I had ready. While Sarah dug into the numbers, I reached out to James, an attorney who specialized in municipal code violations and enforcement abuse. James once sued a town for seizing a man's shed over a 3-inch height violation, and won. When I explained how Laura towed my car from private property and issued an unauthorized fine, he offered to draft a civil complaint against the HOA and Laura personally. Things were clicking into place fast, but I needed to know if this was just about me or if Laura had a pattern of targeting homeowners who challenged her. Then the unexpected happened. An anonymous letter arrived in my mailbox, hand-delivered, no stamp, no return address. A single page, typed in courier font, read, "You're not the first." Laura's been using fines and tows as weapons for years. She patted the board with her friends and drove out the last treasurer when he found inconsistencies. She's hiding HOA funds. Look into the community improvement line in the 2022 report. Also, she paid for a new bathroom vanity, personal, not communal. No signature, but it was enough. I reopened the 2022 HOA financial summary and zeroed in on the Community Improvement Fund. Nearly $15,000 spent, with no work orders, contractor bids, or receipts. That kind of undocumented spending was a 5-alarm fire in audit circles. Sarah confirmed my suspicions that afternoon. She's siphoning money through fake line items. I found payments to companies that don't exist, shell vendors. At least 3 trace back to her cousin, who runs the towing company. My jaw clenched. Laura had turned the HOA into her personal ATM, fining people, towing cars, paying her cousin, and rerouting budgets into non-existent projects, all under the guise of neighborhood management. This wasn't petty control, it was corruption. I didn't need more evidence, but I wanted a community voice to confirm what I'd found. I started visiting neighbors, not to stir drama, but to plant seeds. I mentioned my concerns about excessive towing and that I was reviewing HOA filings. I'd be at the next board meeting. I expected nervous silence. Instead, I got confessions. An elderly couple said they paid $200 because their son parked half an inch onto the curb. A single mother described Laura citing her 4 unapproved roses. Another man said he'd raised concerns about misfiled invoices and was fined for aggressive speech at a meeting. Then came the real breakthrough. Emma, the former HOA secretary, asked to meet me quietly at a Riverside Park picnic table, posing as a chat about community safety. She brought a flash drive. "I kept everything," she whispered. "I knew someone would come along to stop her." The drive held Laura's emails with the board, memos about retaliatory fines, and a list titled "High-Risk Neighbors." Anyone who'd filed complaints, questioned her, or missed a meeting. My name was on it, along with 8 others. I thanked Emma, promised to keep her name out of it, and saw her smile for what seemed like the first time in years. As I walked home, I marveled at Laura's layers of deception. It was impressive in a toxic way, a little empire built on bylaws and fine print. But it was fragile, and now it was cracking. That day, I filed a formal request with the Springfield Zoning Board to review the HOA's incorporation documents and boundary filings, asking for an administrative hold on all HOA enforcement pending review. This would freeze Laura's ability to issue fines or tow cars and force a city compliance review. The war had escalated, and she didn't even know it. 2 days later, an invitation to Laura's infamous HOA Appreciation Gala arrived, hand-delivered by a teenager who looked miserable. The glossy flyer featured Laura's smiling face beside a golden ribbon and a quote, "Leadership is doing what's right, even when others can't see the vision." The event was at the Maplewood Clubhouse, with catered food, champagne, and a presentation on her beautification initiative. It was laughable, knowing the financial records showed the gala was likely funded by fines extorted from homeowners. This wasn't a celebration, it was a cover-up. What Laura didn't know was that her gala would become the stage for her downfall. I decided to attend, not to confront her but to watch her kingdom crumble in front of her audience. I wouldn't raise my voice or speak. The documents would do the talking. Sarah had finished the audit, over $40,000 in misused HOA funds spread across personal expenses, fake contractors, and payments to Laura's cousin's towing company. James had drafted a civil complaint against Laura for fraudulent enforcement, defamation, and unlawful property seizure. The evening of the gala, I arrived on time. The Maplewood Clubhouse was decked out with gold streamers, plastic gavel centerpieces, and a red carpet from the parking lot. A cover band tuned up, and a buffet sagged under shrimp cocktails. It felt like a politician's fundraiser, not a community event. Laura was in her element, wearing a sparkling silver blazer, clutching her clipboard like a scepter. When she saw me, her smile tightened, her grip on the clipboard faltering. She approached cautiously. "Judge Harper," she said, feigning surprise, "I wasn't expecting you. I hope there are no hard feelings about the towing. Just enforcing the rules, you know." I smiled warmly. Of course, I love a good set of rules, as long as they're legal. Her eyes flickered. I let the silence linger before walking past her. I took a seat near the back to observe. Neighbors mingled, sipping cheap champagne from plastic flutes, their expressions polite but wary. I recognized Emma, who gave a subtle nod, and the elderly couple fined over the curb violation. Laura took the stage after 20 minutes, beaming like she'd won HOA President of the Century. Her speech was filled with buzzwords: community unity, maintaining standards, stewardship of funds, and a bizarre analogy about the neighborhood as a garden, with her as the gardener pulling weeds. I nearly choked on my punch. Then her slideshow began. Images of a painted bench, a security sign, and Laura at meetings, looking dedicated. That's when the city clerk, Thomas, walked in, holding a manila envelope and a zoning board freeze notice. He handed them to Laura mid-speech. The room murmured. She forced a smile, continuing, but her hands shook. Then she opened the envelope. Her face drained as she read the first lines. She tried to laugh it off, just a routine zoning matter, but her voice wobbled. Then Emma stood. "I'd like to ask a question," she said clearly. Laura tried to shut her down, but Emma pressed. "How much of the 2022 Community Improvement Fund went toward your bathroom remodel?" The room went silent. Laura's mouth opened, but no words came. Another neighbor asked about towing kickbacks. Another questioned unbid contracts. The dam broke. I didn't speak. I placed copies of Sarah's audit on a table and stepped aside. Neighbors crowded around, reading highlighted line items, fake vendor addresses, and notes on non-existent companies. Laura shouted about slander, but it was too late. Someone began live streaming, and within minutes, Laura's HOA Gala meltdown was trending on Springfield's Facebook. Laura turned to me, voice cracking. "You set me up." I stood calmly. "No, Laura, you set yourself up. I just brought the receipts." She stormed out, pushing through the red carpet, her blazer sweat-stained, her clipboard trembling. The band packed up, the shrimp sat untouched, and her reign ended not with a bang, but with documents and a well-timed delivery. The aftermath spread like wildfire. By morning, the live stream had thousands of views. Neighbors whispered about Laura's meltdown while walking dogs or watering lawns. But for me, the real justice was coming in a Springfield city hearing room where Laura couldn't hide behind decorations. The hearing was fast-tracked due to mounting complaints. Residents submitted statements about suspicious fines, threats of liens, and fake violations. One included footage of Laura in a hoodie moving trash bins at night to justify citations. The hearing room was packed, with reporters waiting outside. Laura arrived late, in a dull blazer, with her cousin posing as counsel. He looked lost, flipping through papers. I sat near the front to watch her every twitch. A zoning officer presented the original maps, showing my lot outside HOA jurisdiction. Laura's photocopied version was laughably amateur. She claimed it was an oversight. The clerk didn't flinch. Sarah's audit followed, spreadsheets of fake payments and towing kickbacks. Laura's cousin tried objecting, but the chair shut him down. "Bring licensed counsel." Residents testified about absurd fines, a wreath find in November, a pre-existing satellite dish cited, a car banned from a mailbox. Emma delivered the final blow, presenting emails, notes, and the priority targets list. Laura looked faint. After a brief recess, the board ruled. Laura was removed as HOA president, the board suspended, and a trustee panel appointed. All her fines and actions were frozen, her filings voided, and a report sent to the DA for fraud and fund misappropriation. Laura left silently, her cousin fumbling papers, reporters snapping photos. Outside, neighbors cheered, some shaking my hand, others offering dinner or joking about garden gnomes. Laura slipped out a side door, deflated, her empire gone. As I drove home, my car safe in my driveway, I felt peace, the kind that comes when justice lands right. But I wasn't done. Justice needed punctuation. The interim board asked me to review bylaws. I declined, but suggested a new tradition, Liberty Day, held on the gala's anniversary. It would feature a mock trial for silly crimes like loudest lawnmower, with punishments like wearing a goofy costume. The first Liberty Day was a potluck in Riverside Park, with kids playing, dogs roaming, and no clipboards. The board surprised me with a cardboard courtroom and a gold-painted clipboard trophy labeled, "Here lies Laura's reign. May fear never rule again." Laughter echoed as kids tossed beanbags at it. Weeks later, a handwritten note arrived, and signed but clearly Laura's, "You humiliated me. I built that HOA. Now it's chaos. Enjoy your circus." I filed it away, unbothered. Laura moved out quietly, her house listed as a fixer-upper with history. Her cousin's towing company dissolved, and the city passed new HOA oversight laws, inspired by our case. I placed a sign on my driveway, "Private property, Lot 42, established with integrity." On the first Liberty Day anniversary, Springfield gathered again. No champagne, just laughter and freedom. I spoke briefly, Power comes from respect, not rules. When someone wields a clipboard like a weapon, shine a light on what they're hiding. Neighbors mingled as equals, kids splashed in sprinklers, and no fines loomed. Laura was gone, her control a fading memory. My driveway stood untouched, my coffee tasted sweeter, and the breeze carried away the last echo of her tow truck's engine. The neighborhood was ours again, and this time, it would stay that way.